The day that changed the world, 9/11s and the aftermath. On the morning of September 11th, 2001, the world changed forever. In just one day, the lives of Muslims around the globe, the geopolitical landscape, and the definition of global warfare were permanently altered. On one side stood the world's sole superpower, the United States of America. On the other side, a man, Osama bin Laden, the most wanted terrorist in the world and the alleged mastermind behind the deadliest terrorist attack in history. But this was not the first time someone had tried to bring down the Twin Towers in New York City. The World Trade Center was not only among the tallest buildings in the world, it was one of the most iconic, featured in over 500 Hollywood films. It was more than steel and concrete, it was a symbol. And that's exactly why the attackers chose it. Because when those towers fell, it wouldn't just be a tragedy, it would be a message sent across the globe. The plan. 23 years ago, the world looked very different. The Soviet Union had collapsed, and China hadn't yet risen as a global power. The United States stood alone at the top. No rival, no threat. But that morning, 19 men, allegedly all Muslims from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Lebanon, and the UAE, arrived at different airports in the US with a deadly plan. They had trained for months, some even learned how to fly commercial aircraft. These weren't random radicals. Each had a role, each had a purpose. The 4 hijacked teams were each assigned to one plane. Flight 11, the first impact at 8:46 a.m. Flight 11, originally headed for Los Angeles, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The hijackers had killed the pilots and placed Mohammed Atta, the operations leader, in control of the aircraft. What shocked investigators later was that Atta accidentally pushed a button that connected his voice directly to air traffic control, where he said, "We have some planes, just stay quiet and you'll be okay." This led to confusion, and the air traffic control tower began clearing runways, expecting an emergency landing. But there would be no landing. Instead, the plane turned 100 degrees and flew directly into Manhattan. When it hit, it was initially reported by American media as a tragic accident. Even President George W. Bush, who was in a Florida school at the time, was told quietly by his staff. His first thought, an accident. Flight 175. The moment the world knew, just 17 minutes later, at 9:03 a.m., Flight 175 struck the South Tower, live on global television. This was no accident. This was war. Marwan al-Shehhi, only 23 years old, piloted that plane. The timing had been planned perfectly so that the whole world would be watching. Now, there was no denying it, America was under attack. Flight 77, the Pentagon, the third hijacked plane, Flight 77, was turned toward Washington, D.C. instead of its original route. At 9:37 a.m., it crashed into the Pentagon, the nerve center of the U.S. military. The impact sent shockwaves across the country. American markets halted. News stations shifted from New York to Washington, showing the Pentagon in flames. Flight 93. The passengers fight back. Meanwhile, the fourth plane, Flight 93, was still in the air. Its target is still debated, but many believe it was headed for either the White House or the U.S. Capitol. This time, though, passengers had already heard about the other attacks via phone calls to their families. Realizing it was a suicide mission, a group of passengers fought back against the hijackers. In the struggle, the plane crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, killing everyone on board but potentially saving hundreds, if not thousands, of lives on the ground. Collapse and chaos at 9:59 a.m. Just under an hour after the first plane hit, the South Tower collapsed. People screamed in horror as a cloud of ash and debris swept through Manhattan. Just 29 minutes later, the North Tower followed. Nearly 3,000 people dead among them. Over 200 people jumped to their deaths from the burning towers. Firefighters, office workers, and tourists all perished. It was the deadliest attack ever on American soil. Who was responsible? Soon after the attacks, all eyes turned to one man, Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda, hiding in Afghanistan. While initially denying involvement, bin Laden later released a video admitting responsibility, praising the 19 attackers and warning the U.S. of future attacks. American fury reached its peak. President George W. Bush declared, "America is under attack. We will hunt down those responsible." Thus began the War on Terror. War in Afghanistan. America issued an ultimatum to the Taliban government in Afghanistan: hand over bin Laden or face the consequences. The Taliban, led by Mullah Muhammad Omar, refused, demanding proof first. But the U.S. refused to negotiate. Just 1 month later, on October 7, 2001, American forces launched airstrikes across Afghanistan. Operation Enduring Freedom had begun. The U.S., with help from anti-Taliban forces like the Northern Alliance, quickly toppled the Taliban government. A new interim president, Hamid Karzai, was installed. Backed by the CIA, he was seen as a U.S. ally boot. Many Afghans viewed him as a puppet. Media war. Silencing Al Jazeera. One unexpected obstacle in the war was the media, specifically Al Jazeera. Unlike Western networks that only showed the U.S. side, Al Jazeera broadcasted civilian casualties caused by U.S. Just 4 weeks into the war, The US bombed Al Jazeera's Kabul office and detained some of its journalists, trying to silence dissent. The Iraq distraction. By 2003, the US shifted its focus. Using false intelligence about weapons of mass destruction, America invaded Iraq, toppling Saddam Hussein. This shift gave the Taliban time to regroup. In the tribal society of Afghanistan, every civilian casualty only strengthened the Taliban. Villagers that lost members joined the resistance. American forces, instead of weakening them, often fueled their growth. Bin Laden's final days. In 2004, just before the US elections, Bin Laden released a video again, claiming full responsibility for 9/11s. This helped George W. Bush secure a second term, but Bin Laden remained elusive. It wasn't until May 2, 2011, under President Barack Obama, that Bin Laden was finally found not in Afghanistan, but in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The CIA had tracked him through years of surveillance, tip-offs, and a fake vaccination campaign. In a 40-minute SEAL Team 6 raid, Bin Laden was shot and killed. His body was taken to Afghanistan for identification, then buried at sea to prevent a martyr's shrine. Though some conspiracy theories remain, even al-Qaeda later confirmed his death. The aftermath. So, with Bin Laden dead, did America leave? No. Instead, the US remained in Afghanistan for 10 more years, citing a new threat: China, and also the discovery of rare minerals like lithium beneath Afghan soil. The real war, it seemed, had shifted again. The final exit. After 20 years, the war ended not with victory, but with retreat. In 2021, President Donald Trump negotiated a withdrawal deal with the Taliban. Under President Joe Biden, US troops left in August. In just days, the Taliban walked back into Kabul. No resistance, no battle. After 2 decades, the US left Afghanistan almost exactly as they found it, but far more damaged. The war had cost $8 trillion, displaced 40 million people, and killed over 4.6 million people, most of them civilians, who profited while soldiers and civilians suffered. One group thrived: defense contractors. Companies like Lockheed Martin saw profits skyrocket. Their CEOs saw salaries jump from $5 million to $30 million a year. War was good business for some. The legacy of the war on terror changed the world. It changed airports, borders, governance, and public opinion. It fueled Islam. In Western countries, Muslims were harassed, fired, or even killed. Debates about whether Islam was a peaceful religion dominated media, but most Muslims worldwide condemned the attacks. Even conservative scholars, the OIC, and religious authorities like Ayatollah Khamenei publicly opposed 9/11s. Still, the damage was done. Closing words: from the ashes of 9/11s rose wars, occupations, and trillions in losses, but also fear, mistrust, and global instability. The Twin Towers fell in minutes, but their collapse echoed for decades, and that is the dark legacy of 9/11s.